It's 2026. In 22 years, 2048, something happens that will change the world. A continent twice the size of Australia, untouched, frozen, holding resources worth trillions. And on a specific date, January 14th, 2048, the lock comes off. Right now, as you're watching this, China is building its fourth research base in Antarctica, planning a fifth. Russia is expanding operations. The United States is watching. Everyone is positioning, not for science, for what comes after. Antarctica holds silver, copper, gold, nickel, platinum, iron ore, chromium, cobalt, molybdenum, zinc, manganese, lead, titanium, and uranium. Oil reserves offshore, coal deposits inland. None of it can be touched until 2048. And here's the part nobody's talking about. There are indications that some states may already be prospecting, notwithstanding this formally being one of the prohibited activities. They're not waiting. They're preparing. This isn't a story about ice. This is a story about the last resource grab on Earth, about what happens when a treaty, written in 1959, when there were 12 countries and no China, no climate crisis, no resource scarcity, comes up for review in a world that's running out of everything. 22 years. That's how long we have before the largest unmined continent on the planet becomes the center of the next Cold War, or the next hot one. Tonight, we investigate what's really happening in Antarctica, who's positioning, what they're after, and why the countdown to 2048 has already begun. This is Hours Deep, the frozen vault. What's actually down there? Antarctica isn't just ice. Underneath that ice, kilometers thick in places, is a continent with rock, with geology, with mineral deposits. Metalliferous fold belts found in Australia, Africa, and South America have continuations in Antarctica. Translation? If South Africa has gold, Antarctica probably has gold. If South America has copper, Antarctica probably has copper. The resource inventory. Here's what we know is there. Metals. Gold. Likely in Queen Maud Land, paralleling South Africa's gold-rich Witwatersrand beds. Copper. The Antarctic Peninsula has copper-bearing plutons similar to Andean porphyry copper bodies. Platinum, silver, nickel, titanium, chromium, cobalt, zinc, manganese, lead, uranium, hydrocarbons. Petroleum reserves indicated off the coast in thick sedimentary basins. Filchner Ice Shelf, Rana Ice Shelf, Amory Ice Shelf, Ross Sea, Weddell Sea. Coal deposits in the Transantarctic Mountains and Prince Charles Mountains. The catch. Most of these deposits are low quality, not economically viable to mine. The coal is high moisture, high ash content, thin and in broken bands. The iron ore is only 35% iron. Other regions have 60% or more. But here's what changed. Technology. With improved drilling and mining technology, the risk of future mining activity is increasing. What wasn't worth mining in 1991 might be worth mining in 2048. The climate connection. To meet Paris Agreement goals, 60% of proven hydrocarbon reserves need to remain in the ground. If you can't drill Saudi Arabia, Venezuela, or Russia because of climate commitments, where do you drill? The last untouched place, the treaty system. So why hasn't anyone touched it yet? The Antarctic Treaty, signed in 1959 in Washington, D.C. 12 nations during the Cold War. Remarkable agreement. At the height of U.S.-Soviet tensions, both sides agreed. Antarctica belongs to no one. No military, no nuclear testing, pure science. The Madrid Protocol, 1991. They added something crucial. The Madrid Protocol, signed in Madrid, Spain. banned all commercial mining for at least 50 years. Entered into force on January 14, 1998. Article 7. Any activity relating to mineral resources, other than scientific research, shall be prohibited. Simple, clear, total ban, until Article 25. The Review Clause. If, after the expiration of 50 years, any of the Antarctic Treaty consultative parties so requests, a conference shall be held as soon as practicable to review the operation of this protocol. 50 years from 1998. That's 2048. 22 years from now, any of the 29 consultative parties can request a review. If they get at least a 75% vote from consultative parties, the mining ban can be lifted, the nuclear option, or the doomsday scenario if new mining arrangements don't enter force within 3 years from adoption. Any party can notify withdrawal from the protocol, taking effect 2 years later, at which point that country can start mining. No legal constraints, and the entire Antarctic Treaty system might collapse. One country leaves, starts drilling, others follow. The treaty falls apart. Antarctica becomes the Wild West, with ice. Who's positioning? China. February 2025, China announced plans for a 4th Antarctic research base. 5th, planned next year. Context: Japan, Germany, and Italy have 5 bases each. Great Britain and the United States have 6. China's catching up. Fast. What they've said publicly, they want to balance protection and use in Antarctica. Not pure protection, protection and use. That's code. Russia. Russia has historical claims. Explorer Fabian Bellingshausen was the first to discover Antarctica in January 1820. They've never formally made a territorial claim, but they've also never renounced the right to make one. Russia is already mining the Arctic. Successfully. They know how to operate in extreme cold. United States. 6 bases. Heavy presence. UK, Japan, and USA are currently arguing against a permanent ban on mining, not arguing for mining in 2048, just arguing against making the ban permanent forever. Why keep the door open if you don't plan to walk through it? The secret activity. Every major power is positioning, building infrastructure, establishing presence, conducting research. There are indications that some states may already be prospecting, even though it's prohibited. The race has already started. We're just not calling it a race yet. The timeline 2026. Now, we're more than halfway through the 50-year countdown. Countries are making decisions today based on what might be available in 2048. 2030s. China's urbanization process will end in the 2030s, marking the peak of its greenhouse gas emissions. If China transitions away from coal and oil, they might not need Antarctic hydrocarbons. That's good news. But by 2048, demand for hydrocarbons may come from other developing countries. Someone will want it. 2047. The Ross Sea Marine Protected Area, which forbids fishing completely, comes up for review in 2047, 1 year before the mining ban review. If that protection gets weakened or removed, it's a signal. 2048, January 14th, 2048. 50 years since the Madrid Protocol entered force, any consultative party can request a review conference. And then the negotiation begins. The misunderstanding. Here's what people don't understand about 2048. The protocol doesn't automatically expire. Many believe the environmental protocol or the treaty will simply vanish in 2048. That's not accurate. It continues unless actively changed. But the conversation begins, and once that conversation starts, once mining becomes a possibility instead of an impossibility, the political pressure changes. The obstacles to mining. Antarctica isn't easy. It might not even be possible. Here's why. Challenge number 1. The ice Antarctica is covered by ice streams and glaciers, constantly moving. You can't just drill through moving ice. Icebergs drift around the continent, grinding into the ocean floor like billion-ton plows. Any offshore oil rig would have to survive icebergs the size of cities. Challenge number 2. The distance Antarctica is thousands of miles from any industrial center. Pack ice can be blown miles in a day. Transportation, even in summer, is far from assured. 2002 to 2003. The UK's Halley Bay base relief had to be completed by air after numerous attempts to reach by sea were beaten. If you can't reliably reach a research station, how do you run a mine? Challenge number 3. The cost mining Antarctica would be extremely expensive and dangerous. Weather, ice, distance from industrialized areas. Every dollar of resource extracted would cost $5 to extract. At current prices, it doesn't make economic sense. But here's what changes that calculation. Scarcity. The scarcity equation. Ongoing trade wars combined with increasing consumption and depletion of known resources will necessitate the search for new deposits in poorly explored or unexplored areas, such as polar regions. When copper, nickel, platinum, and rare earths become scarce enough, price goes up. When price goes up enough, Antarctica becomes profitable. And when it becomes profitable, the obstacles become solvable problems. The real game. It's not about mining in 2048. It's about who controls the decision in 2048. Reaching consensus among consultative parties is no small feat. Recent years have shown how challenging it is to unite diverse nations with differing priorities. Discussions around climate change, impacts, and conservation have often stalled. Several proposals for new protected areas have faced significant hurdles. Countries holding firm on opposing views. Translation: countries are already blocking each other, testing leverage, building alliances, because in 2048, the vote happens. And whoever controls that vote controls Antarctica. The territorial claims. 7 countries have territorial claims in Antarctica: Norway, Australia, France, New Zealand, Chile, Argentina, United Kingdom. These claims overlap in many cases. Multiple countries claim the same territory. Russia and the USA have made no claims, but they've also never renounced the right to make claims. The Antarctic Treaty froze all these claims in 1959. Nobody gave up their claim. Nobody recognized anyone else's claim. Everyone just agreed to disagree and focus on science. But if the treaty weakens, those claims unfreeze, and then it's not about mining rights, it's about sovereignty, territory, national borders. That's the nightmare scenario, not mining. War. The 3 scenarios. Scenario 1, the ban holds. Best case, in 2048, the consultative parties meet, review the protocol, and decide to keep the mining ban in place, maybe even make it permanent. There is a compelling case for converting the present general moratorium on Antarctic mineral resource activity into an explicit prohibition of hydrocarbon extraction now, rather than waiting for 2048. Some countries are already pushing for this. Germany hosted a major Antarctic meeting in 2022, trying to facilitate a forever ban on hydrocarbon extraction. if climate commitments hold, if renewable energy transitions succeed, if resource scarcity doesn't get desperate, the ban might hold. Antarctica stays frozen, untouched, a scientific preserve. That's the optimistic scenario. Scenario 2, limited extraction. Middle scenario, 2048 arrives. Some countries push for limited regulated mining. They argue, we need these resources. Climate tech requires rare earths. Electric vehicles need cobalt, nickel, lithium. You can't transition to green energy without mining somewhere. So they propose small-scale extraction, strict environmental controls, revenue sharing, international oversight. A compromise. Any new mining framework would require consensus among all consultative parties, ratification by 3/4 of all consultative parties, and by all who signed the protocol, nearly impossible to achieve. But if the pressure is high enough, if resources are scarce enough, if economic collapse is imminent, compromises get made. Antarctica gets carved into extraction zones. Some areas protected, others opened for mining. The continent becomes an industrial site. Scenario 3, the collapse. Worst case, 2048 arrives, no consensus. Countries can't agree. One major power, China, Russia, USA, decides it can't wait anymore. If new mining arrangements don't enter force within 3 years, any party can notify withdrawal from the protocol. Taking effect 2 years later, they withdraw. The mining ban no longer applies to them. They start drilling. And then what happens? Do other countries just watch? Or do they follow? Claim their own territory? Start their own operations? The Antarctic Treaty system may collapse as a result of such a contingency. 70 years of international cooperation, gone. Replaced by what? Territorial disputes, resource conflicts, military presence. If the consultative parties decide to question the provisions of the protocol, automated mining could begin soon after. Within years, Antarctica transforms from scientific sanctuary to industrial battlefield. Who wins? Who loses? Winners, mining corporations. Whoever gets the contracts. Rio Tinto, BHP, Glencore. Chinese state-owned enterprises. Mining companies are campaigning hard to have the ban lifted. They've been waiting decades for this. Resource-poor nations, countries without domestic mineral reserves. They gain access to materials they desperately need. Whoever controls the vote. Political leverage over Antarctica means leverage over global resource supply. Losers. The environment. Antarctica's ecosystem, already stressed by climate change, faces industrial extraction. Future generations. Once you mine it, it's gone. Forever. Global cooperation. The Antarctic Treaty is one of the last examples of nations working together peacefully. If it falls apart over greed, what does that say? The cruelest irony. If the major economies implement the Paris Agreement and meet net zero emission commitments, Antarctica's reserves of coal and oil will remain under the ground. If we successfully fight climate change, we won't need Antarctic resources. But if we fail to fight climate change, the melting ice makes those resources easier to reach. The worse we do on climate, the more accessible Antarctica becomes. Success protects it. Failure exposes it. What's already happening? 2048 is the official deadline, but the preparation is happening now. There are indications that some states may already be prospecting, violating the ban. How do you prospect without technically prospecting? Scientific research. You drill ice cores, study geology, map the ocean floor with sonar. All legal under the treaty. And all of it creates data that would be very useful for future mining operations. Every research base built today is infrastructure that could become a mining support base tomorrow. Every survey conducted is a map for future extraction. The groundwork is being laid right now, while we're not paying attention, and that's the real story. 2048 isn't a deadline. It's a countdown everyone's already racing. So that's Antarctica, not the ice wall conspiracy, not flat earth nonsense, the real story. The resource war that's coming, 22 years. In 22 years, humanity makes a choice. Keep Antarctica frozen and pristine, or turn the last untouched continent into the next extraction zone. And here's what keeps me up at night. We've never, not once in human history, left resources in the ground when we needed them badly enough. We've never chosen preservation over profit when the pressure was high enough. The Antarctic Treaty was a miracle, a moment when the world agreed something should stay sacred. But miracles don't last forever, and 2048 is coming whether we're ready or not. If you want to know what happens next, watch who's building bases in Antarctica. Watch the diplomatic meetings in 2047. Watch what China, Russia, and the U.S. are saying about balanced use. That's where the story is. This has been hours deep. 22 years. The clock is ticking,